Life isn't only about destinations, it's about the steps, stories, and moments in between.
In this episode, we share why every mile matters and how learning to embrace the road itself changes everything. Life is a journey filled with twists, turns, and the miles in between.
And every mile matters, especially the ones we walk together.
I'm Tammy Sirmon.
And I'm Michael Sirmon.
Welcome to Every Mile with You.
This is where we share real conversations about relationships, resilience, and the everyday challenges we face.
And the joy, laughter, and love that carry us through.
From the big milestones to the quiet moments that mean the most,
we're here to encourage you, inspire you, and remind you
you're never walking alone.
Wherever we wander, we walk side by side.
Welcome back. I'm Michael, and I'm here with Tammy. On today's episode, we're going to talk about Every Mile Matters. And here's why we chose this episode.
Life is full of goals, dreams, and destinations, but the truth is most of our life happens on the way there. That's what we want to talk about today, why every mile matters.
You know, many times in our lives, Tammy, we've had opportunities to do some tremendous things, right?
Yes.
So if you think about when we took our trip to Italy, and we ended up getting held over at Heathrow, right? And we had to stay there overnight, and we had to camp out. Yes, our trip really was Italy, right? And I remember, right, the Lake Como and already all of that, and just the incredible time that we had. But what stands out the most to me is while we were stuck in the airport, and those kids that we had the opportunity to interact with.
Oh, wow.
Remember that?
Yes, that was phenomenal.
Right. When we took a youth group down to Mexico on a mission trip, right, help reroute a stream that was taking out the foundation of a church.
Right.
That was good. And I think that was the purpose. But the drive down where we camped overnight in the orange field, right, and where we had just the interaction and the different adventures and stuff that we had, that was really the trip. Right. That was the best part of it.
Right.
And I think life, all of our lives are that way. We have a dream, we have a plan, we have a goal sometimes. Sometimes we just know we're going a general direction.
Right.
But it's those small things that happen that later we find out were much bigger things than what we realized at the time, because they help shape us. They help change the way we looked at things and the way we responded to different life, right? We've been married 38 years.
Right.
And every road trip, I still learn something new about you.
I don't know.
Right? No, I mean, but it's true though.
We do, I guess. I guess we do learn about each other on each road trip. And sometimes it's just about, you can actually learn something from someone just by sitting in silence a lot of times. And then, of course, the things that catch your eye while you're traveling down the road, and the conversations that spark over the sights that you see.
Yeah.
And it brings up old memories. It brings up expectations of the future.
Right.
So, yes, I guess we do definitely learn about each other.
But you do. I mean,
on each and every road trip.
Every obituary will have, or every headstone will have, here's so-and-so, and they lived from here to here.
Right.
And in between, there's that dash.
The dash.
Right? The dash is the important part.
Mm-hmm.
So we can have a destination in mind. We can say, hey, we are going to go to Missouri to Legacy Meats, right?
Right.
We can say we're going to run up there, make a trip up there. We know it's 2.5 hours up, depends on which way you go. But you can take the turnpike like I like taking, or you can take the scenic route like you like taking.
Exactly.
Right? Your way takes us to garage sales and fruit markets and
right.
different things. And there's
antique stores.
That middle of nowhere barbecue place that's up there. I love that one.
Mm-hmm.
But my way gets us in the car and drives us there.
Right.
And it's just me driving, you sleeping. Right?
Okay.
And there's no real...
It's a mundane drive.
Yeah, there's no real adventure in it. And I think a lot of times in our lives, we take that approach. We think, okay, well, this is just mundane. This is every day. This is what I do, right? It's just who I am.
Right.
But the truth is, there's magical moments within there, and that's one thing that you really taught me in our marriage is to pause long enough to find or see the magic in that moment.
Right.
The magic in your child's or your grandchild's first step, their first words, or even more fun is when they say things the wrong way, right? Like one of our grandsons is, "I love it." Right? I love it. I just love it.
I love it.
And I mean, it just says it with so much passion and so much certainty about it.
It actually makes me want to adopt that.
It does, right?
That word. I love.
I love it. I love it. I love you, right?
Yes.
And I think that as adults, we lose that. The story of what was that? The Polar Express, right? Where they could hear the magic bell, and we kind of talked about that a little bit last time.
Right.
But where they could hear the magic bell if they believed in Santa, but yet there came a point that they grew and they couldn't see it anymore, or couldn't hear it anymore. And I think all of our lives are that way. When we're young, right? Do you remember what you wanted to be when you were little?
Well, when I was little, my mom was my role model, and so of course I wanted to be a mom and have a couple of kids. But I did have dreams later of wanting to become a airline stewardess, and now they call them flight attendants. So
Model.
I wanted to be a model after I started getting older.
You wanted to be a photographer. You wanted to be a writer.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So, see, and I wanted to be what I want to be. I wanted to be a bull riding, firefighting preacher who was also a secret agent. Right?
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had all this worked out. And when I pretended to be, when I was a superhero, I was never that superhero that was like a Superman or something like that. I was always just some obscure superhero that had their own unique thing that they did, right? Because I wanted to do something unique and do things my own way.
Right.
Well, somewhere over the years, I've ridden a bull, right? I've ridden a couple bulls, not for very long, but but I was on them when I was younger.
Yes.
I've never been a secret agent, even though I have kept some secrets in my life. I've never been an official firefighter, but we had the fire that broke out in the backyard that time. I had to get put out. Right? And the whole family became firefighters that night.
That we sure did.
Which is a story for a different time. I've definitely been a preacher. I've definitely been a teacher.
Right.
But I still have those things that I can remember, those things that I try to do. Okay, so think back in your life, right? The things that you wanted to do, right?
Right.
You've written books, children's books.
Yes.
You have
adult books.
And adult books. You have taught. Mm-hmm. You have had your own photography business for a while, very successful one.
Right.
Right.
Although I did not model, I worked with models through my photography.
Right.
And
then you had the fashion show that you ran. That was a good one.
Yes, that was a really fun time. That was something I had always wanted to do, something like that. And that was the most craziest thing that happened because I had honestly forgotten that I always wanted to do something like that. And then out of nowhere, I had started working for a department store, and come to find out, my boss, the manager there, Robin, she had just a lot going on her plate. And she had said that they had the fall fashion show that was coming up, and asked if I hadn't even worked there 2 weeks. And she asked if I would be interested in heading it up. And apparently they each year would only have anywhere from 15 to 20 models that did this show.
Right.
And when she asked me, I was like, oh my goodness, because I felt that there were other qualified managers that worked at the store that had obviously worked there much longer than I had.
Right.
And anyway, long story short, I ended up gathering 63 models for that fall show. And so,
wow,
isn't that pretty cool?
It's cool. It was fun too. You did such a beautiful job. Everybody had a great time.
Yes.
Nobody wanted to.
Nobody wanted to leave the store. And that day in their cells, the entire time, our manager had ever worked for Fashion Bug at the time.
Right.
She had never in her life had that high of sales other than that particular day.
Wow.
In a 1 day sales. So
no, it was amazing. I enjoyed being part of it.
It was pretty awesome.
Help get things set up and stuff. So
we appreciated all of you. You were such a big help. All the men that came in, that pitched in, you guys were so sensational. And the fact that you guys hung out and stayed around and watched everything, got to see everything, and the girls got to talk to the guys and things. It was phenomenal. It was just one of those wonderful days that you just don't know. I mean, we were talking about how when we don't realize that something that we step into is going to take a major shape and shape differently, right?
Right.
And that is one thing that, she made me think, oh, this is just a little small thing.
Right.
And it actually turned into something so dang huge.
Yeah, it was huge. And the village just go in and rearrange the store to get it set up.
That was a lot of fun too. Yeah.
And the girls definitely had fun doing it.
It was a highlight of my life, actually. And I had completely forgot about that, babe. Thanks for bringing that up.
But isn't that what we do in life, right? It's back to the story of the bell, right? We get so caught up in being an adult,
right?
That we're so looking forward and pushing and driving, right? So looking forward to the destination that we lose sight of all this other stuff.
Right.
So if you think back on our lives, the things that we have been able to do, right? Because we've been willing to do it, or because we were too poor to do anything else.
Right.
Right.
Right. What do you mean by that?
No, I mean, you go back to, if you sat down and wrote out a resume.
Right.
And say, okay, this is all of the jobs that I have done in my life, right?
Right.
Obviously, we've mowed yards, right?
Yes.
We've done the weed eating. We've done the senior care as far as sitting with elderly and visiting with them. But we've washed dishes in restaurants. I have anyway.
Right.
I've cooked in a steakhouse before. Was a grave digger for a couple of years, right? I was a carny for a couple of years, right? But we also produced, wrote and produced plays, right? We acted in plays,
wrote national newsletters,
right? Wrote international news,
I'm sorry,
right?
National and international,
and the boards, and we in Italy, right? We got to we
lived a fairy tale dream,
right? And dined with the old world royalty, which are things that
we never happened.
Never on our list of doing, but the things that we encountered on the way to it.
Right.
Right. So, when I got invited up to, I think it was Akron to play or go to that leadership conference, and we got to play golf.
Right.
And, to play on the course that was set up for the Masters, which was going to play the next week.
Wow.
It was crazy, right? Because now, I would drive a hole, or I would play, and then I would watch the pros come in the next week, and I'm like, wait a minute, I outdrove him. Oh, I did better than that.
Oh, that's cool.
In that one moment. Now, the other 99.9% of it, they blew me away.
Right.
But it was those kind of moments, I think, if we're not careful, that we lose. We miss out on, right? There's so many things I wish I could sit down and talk to my mom and my grandparents about now.
Right.
That I would understand them, right? So now would be the time I could do it. But they're no longer here to ask those questions. They're no longer here to get those stories from them and understand.
Right.
Like when your grandmother, your grandma was in the nursing home, right? And she was kind of in and out of who she was.
Right.
And to be able to go and sit with her, and she and I would watch the Model Ts race up the hallway, right?
That was so precious.
Because in her eyes, it was very real, and in her
very vivid.
In her lucid moments, she could tell me about the cars, right?
Yeah.
And I think as young kids, since we know everything, we don't take the opportunity to learn what our seniors would know, right? But then there comes a point in our life that we realize that I don't know everything, right? And I wish I could have that conversation again. I could wish I could ask why on this or what drove that conversation, because now I'm mature enough to understand it.
Right.
I'm mature enough even to know to ask the questions.
Right.
Which before, I remember you really encouraged, before Mom passed away, you encouraged she and I to spend more time together because we never really were that close.
Right.
So, we went to lunch a couple times,
Right.
but it was very awkward times at lunch. Right? Yeah, we talked about the superficial type things, but we never really talked about the things that were important. And then once she's gone, then it's like, oh, I wish I had those. I wish I knew why this or that, right? So I think that's why, for me, the dash is so important.
It is important. I think that, first of all, it's extremely important while we're young to learn the importance of communication. Because if we can't communicate with our loved ones, it's one thing going to the workplace and feeling that you can communicate all day long,
right?
But it's a completely different conversation in your mind when you can actually make yourself take that next step and say, you know what, today I'm going to communicate with my family,
right?
Because so many times we have these conversations in our head of what we think a conversation is going to play out like, that we're too afraid to take the conversation to the next level, which is where it needs to be. And that helps to shape us along these miles, right? If we can learn to communicate with those that we love, those that we admire, those that we treasure early in our lives, that is going to help us get through the miles easier as we grow older.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, just think about it. On the most recent episode of Lead Well, Live Whole, right, had the interview with Larry Kerr.
Yes.
And one of the things that Larry talked about was that, well, what advice would you give your younger self if you go back? And he said, just to slow down.
Right.
Step back, breathe. And I think that you and I say that all the time to people, right? When you're, and even to each other a lot, when we start getting in that moment, we just start getting agitated. Stop. Yes. We are, breathe. Now, in the old movies, that when you saw that when they walk up and just slap somebody to get attention, right? Now, obviously, we're not going to do that. Want to sometimes, but we're not going to do that. Yeah,
that's not good for anybody.
It's not good for anybody. But there's an option. You can reset, right? One of our sons, he resets by blinking his eyes, which I thought was kind of cool. So I've started trying to do that.
It really works.
It does work.
It very much
does. A lot of quick blinking will stop whatever's firing in your brain at that moment.
Stimulation.
Get you to reset.
The negatives. For me, it works to reset whatever negative stimulation I'm struggling with. And you're real quick to say, okay, it's time to reset. And I know that means let's take time to blink. And at first I didn't understand it, but man, it's extremely cool, the things that you can learn from your loved ones by just settling, being quiet and listening, or just watching, And that's how we learned that from our son, was just taking time to notice. It's important to notice.
It is. So another way to do that, really, and I do it all the time, is just go in and run some super cold water and just splash it on my face, right? Submerge my face into it.
Yes.
And I know sometimes you're tempted to hold my head under the water when I do that.
I want to hold your head under the water because you splash it all over the mirrors.
That is true. That is very true.
I just get the mirrors all clean. I'm so proud. Everybody can see their beautiful, shiny faces. And I walk in the very next moment after I've cleaned the bathroom and there's sprinkles all over. And finally I said, what is going on? I'm in the bathroom. I need an answer. I don't understand this.
Like, how much detail do you want?
I literally just went in there, cleaned all the mirrors.
You're right.
I walk out of the room. I come back and there's sprinkles of water. the sink is down here. But when
But
you
my
explained
face
it
is up here.
I know.
All right.
And it's all these years. Finally, I got up the nerve to ask,
Right.
how is this happening? Do you not like a clean mirror? I don't understand. But once
I do think
you shared,
I do think
you
they're
think
overrated.
clean mirrors are overrated,
They are.
kind of like clean windows are overrated with birds that go
That's
crashing
true.
into
That is
them
true, right? So
and smacking right into them.
yeah. So if my mirror is clean, then who knows what's on the other side that could come through.
Oh.
If there's smudges on it, then they'll see it's there and they'll stop them. Right.
No, really, honestly, once I finally got it, not the courage, but once I finally asked, I was actually very enlightened. That was a very enlightening moment because
Now you still want me to wipe the mirror?
I do want you to.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's ever happened, but I would like for you to. But now that I get why the sprinkles are there, actually it doesn't bother me now.
Yeah, I do remember
It
wiping
only
the mirror
took
off once.
37 years to figure that out for me to just ask the question one day.
I do remember wiping the mirror off once though.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. But well, here's the problem. When I go in and I reset,
Right.
I'm reset and I forget I forget about my mirror and wipe. But no, but I mean it's true though. Life is full of detours. Right. I have jokingly said over the years that my epitaph on my headstone was just going to say recalculating. Because I'm nowhere. I did nothing in my life I thought I was going to do career-wise, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it was so much more and so much further, and was able to interact with so many cool and interesting people that I would not have had I just stuck in a rigid path or a rigid line and said this and ignore every other opportunity.
Right.
Because a lot of opportunities look like backward steps, right? But it's almost like the old joke about you can't get there from here.
Right.
But it's that way. You've got to step back to that junction where the road will take you to that path. And we don't always see it. We don't always know it. But in life, especially me, right, I'm so tempted to rush and push and try to get to where I need to go or where I think I need to go or where I want to go that I miss everything. Right?
It's funny that I understand exactly what you're saying about rushing to hurry up to get to the next thing. But I don't mean to get off topic, but as I was reflecting, you were talking about things that you did in life that you never realized that you would ever do. I mean, I can think of handfuls of things now that you're sharing your end of things that, whenever I was a kid, I babysat a ton of children in our neighborhood, and that, our pastor's wife, she saw me work my summers doing that. And so that ended up going ahead and sprinkling into basically ministry on my end that I had no idea was going to be available.
Right.
And she asked if I would be open to watching the children in the nursery on the women's prayer meeting Tuesdays. And so that opened a door of ministry for me. And then whenever I was, being able to pour into these kids' lives for 2 to 3 hours on Tuesdays, I never thought that I would do something like that. And then, years later, there's countless opportunities, but things that just by you doing one thing, it ends up opening doors for another thing. Yeah. But if you don't take time to slow down and to reminisce or to pay attention to where either you were and you didn't know that you were steering, or you just are in the middle of that moment and you don't realize that your life is steering in a different way. I remember when our kids were young, literacy was an extremely huge thing for me. And the crazy part is my mom was an incredible, she was a major bookworm.
Very avid reader.
My mom could not get enough books. She read about anything and everything she could get her hands on. And a lot of people don't realize that about my mom.
Right.
But of course, the siblings probably, if they hear this, they'll probably remember that every opportunity that she had, she did have some form of a book in her hand. Um, but that steered straight into me growing up watching her have a book. But the only problem is that she got so busy with doing life and taking care of us and taking care of others outside of our home that unfortunately I ended up struggling in my reading, and she didn't know how to deal with a child who was having problems not only with reading, but I had a speech impediment at that point, and so she was just doing the best she could. My dad was working away from home a lot, and she's trying to raise me and my brother,
Right.
and do all of her other responsibilities and things, and helping take care of older people in our family. Which I said all that to say, it just ended up leading me down a road I never thought I would take, because through school I really struggled reading, and so I was petrified anytime I was asked to read in class.
Right.
It would felt like it just set me back 10 steps, because I was extremely shy, and I always purpose. Oh, and then come around my junior year, I started coming alive in my reading, and oddly enough, I fell in love with Shakespeare. And I've been going to church my entire life, and I wanted to learn what the Bible meant to me. And we studied King James, and so King James and Shakespeare are just so incredibly close together.
Right.
And so I had asked God, please help me understand this, because I want to pass my classes, and I struggle with King James. And that's when my reading really started taking off.
Oh, wow.
And so I swore, I told myself, I made a promise to myself, you are not going to let reading be a crutch to your children when they get older. And so that's whenever we started raising our kids, we involved them very much in the reading programs at the library. And that ended up taking me into a whole different life than I ever thought. For 3.5 years, I was asked to be the Friends of the Collinsville Library president. And I had a lot on my plate, didn't want to do that. But it took me down a road I didn't think I would ever travel.
Oh, yeah. The turn of the century balls, those are awesome.
They were.
I love them.
They really were. And I didn't mean to get off on that, but I just was trying to point out that so often our lives, where they're at, if we want to just sit there, we're going to be there. But if we open ourselves up to new ideas, new dreams, new avenues,
right,
it will steer us into this beautiful situation.
Right. Which brings me back to most people, most adults, right? It's about living. It's about surviving. It's not living. It's about surviving. Which is not living, and which is not thriving by any means.
Exactly.
And it becomes about the milestones, right? I've got to do this. So I just focus on that and I do that. Mom, I remember growing up as a teenager. I remember one time I asked her, I said, "Why are you never sick?" Because I never saw her sick. Mm-hmm. And she said, "I don't have time to be sick."
Thursday, was it because she didn't have time?
So she said, "I don't have time to be sick," right? Because
wow,
single mom, right? Granted, she married Tom, but she really raised us as a single mom. We had some stepdads over the years, but
you were 18 when she.
But I was 18 by the time she married Tom, right?
Yeah.
And then, matter of fact, they got married right around my 18th birthday, and forgot my 18th birthday, but that's a different story.
Right.
I'm still dealing with that trauma. But the thing about it is, once she retired, right, sold the restaurants and everything, seemed like everything she never had time for compounded and came back on her. Now, don't get me wrong, Mom loved the magic of life, right? Mom loved the adventure. She loved creating stuff. She loved kids, and she was the biggest kid when you went somewhere, right?
She volunteered for every campground situation.
She did.
To help however she could.
She did.
She loved the adventure.
Because she wanted to give, and she wanted to give back and be part of, right? But she didn't get to do that as much when she was younger as she did when she was older. And so since I'm just trying to cram everything in together, there at the end. And because we're so caught up in the milestone piece of it, that we don't realize that the real shaping and forming and educating of who we are happens on that in between the milestones, in those little side roads, in the alleys, in the wherever it is that we get diverted to.
I love that.
And we get frustrated because we're not hitting that timeline. We're not hitting that whatever it may be. But the truth is, there's a reason for it, right? We had a lot of delays on getting the library finished,
right?
And we were getting frustrated because it was delaying, and we were like, "Why is this taking so long? It's like this is dragging out forever, right?" Even to the point, right? Dave Aiken, who was the plumber and electrician we were working with, right? He started having a lot of things were pulling him away, so there were some delays on that,
right?
But when it came time to put it on the market, was the ideal time to put it on the market.
Right.
And had we met our timeline, we would have been ahead of that market spike. Right. So it worked out really good for us.
Right.
The time that we were supposed to have we were going to Western Oklahoma to hold our Bible, and waking up, and it's like, yeah, everything was then said, don't do that.
Both of us,
right? And separately, we're like, I just have this, that something says, pause, wait, stop. So we reached out to the pastor and we explained, hey, we cannot. Can't tell you why we cannot, but we cannot.
Because we don't understand why.
Right. And then I don't remember if it was that same afternoon or the next day.
I can't either, but it was within 24 hours.
Yeah, within 24 hours, the motor in our car blew up.
Yeah.
Right. So this was pre-cell phones. It was just me and thee and our two little wee ones, right?
Yeah.
So it would have been us out somewhere in the middle of who knows where, flatlands of Oklahoma, in the middle of desert or in the middle of summer.
It was
with
heat December. Yes.
Down. So while we were frustrated in the very beginning, the delay of wanting to reschedule this and push this off actually worked out good, because we learned to listen to that thing within us that says stop.
Right.
We did learn that, because it's easy for me to ignore that and push straight through it.
Right.
And you've always been far more sensitive to that than I have.
Right.
When we learn that the timeline isn't really our timeline.
Right.
Right. When we were running the mission in Stillwell, we had the mission there. We're running, and it really started growing, really started thriving. And then the brother who had actually founded it before he turned it over to us, decided that he wasn't going to pass away from the cancer, and he came back and he said, "Hey, I want to come back in." And we're like, "Okay, well, I mean, it's yours anyway, so absolutely."
Right.
But the idea was we could run it together, but that didn't work out, because you can't have two heads.
Right.
And then the day we went back to him, and we finally turned it over and we're driving away, and you looked at me and said, "I feel like we've been fired."
Right.
I said, "I do too." And you said, "Well, now what?" I said, "I have no idea, but God knows what he has in store for us."
Exactly.
And we weren't just a couple miles down the road, if that.
Yeah.
And the phone rings, because we did have cell phones at that point.
Right.
The phone rang, and it was a friend of mine named Randall Moss. Right. And Randall said, and he supported us in the ministry, right? But Randy was like, "Hey, we've got I need some help. Do you know anybody who could come and help me?" And that was Gardner Denver. Gardner Denver was materials major at the time. He said, "I need somebody to come in and help me do this. Do you know anybody?" And I said, "Hey, I happen to know somebody who's available." And so, he was surprised, but I went in because I was going in as a contributor, not as a manager. And before that, I'd been manager.
Right.
So it was definitely a step back. But it was what I was supposed to do. So I showed up for he said, "Okay, well, let's get your resume in tonight. Before you go to sleep, put your resume in." So about midnight, I sent it in. And next morning, they called me, brought me in. Within 3 days, I was hired, right, and working.
And which is pretty much unheard of,
right,
in the industry.
And even the lady who scheduled the interview named
HR, yes.
And she was like, "Who do you know? Because we don't get you in this quickly."
Usually can take weeks or a couple of months,
Right.
depending on what's going on with the company.
But that whole thing, right, in the interviews with sitting down visiting with the director of ops at the time and the HR manager, and they're like, well, you're materials manager. Why would you want to come in at this role? And I said, because this is what I'm supposed to do right now.
Right.
And so they kept trying to push me to step into a management role. And I'm like, that's not what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So it was a lengthy process to convince somebody that that's not what I'm supposed to do. Now, they still, when I came in, they moved me into a management role, but I didn't manage anybody, which was kind of odd. But because of that, though, because that detour from the mission, which is the path that we were on, into this backward step, then that led to the path of the materials manager, plant manager, director of ops, VP of ops, being on the executive board, right, or executive team and all that. So the detour could have devastated us,
right,
but it didn't, right, because it was about the journey.
It was
in
about
between,
the journey,
right? And when we've seen that time and time and time and time again, right?
When we limit ourselves and we choose to limit God, it can put a damper on what God's actual best for us is, because once again, God is a gentleman. He's never going to, I don't want to say he's never, but his norm is not to shove us out of a nest.
Right.
He is a gentleman. And, I have always believed that myself. Some people have a complete different theory. They believe that if God wants you to go a certain way, you're going to go that way, regardless of what path happens in front of you. But I don't believe that. I believe a lot of times we get in God's way, his absolute ultimate best for us.
Right.
And we can limit what he wants us to play out. He may have intended for us to play out a much sooner timeline in our lives than what we actually would have, but we limit ourselves too much. So we don't open ourselves to say, God, here I am, use me in my gifts. So we just get honed in on this one area of our lives. And if we're not careful, we can feel like we're trapped there and don't want to have the wings. Don't give ourselves the wings to say, you know what, this is not a life that I want to live, which takes me to, I will ever and forever be extremely grateful to my dad, because when we were kids, we had to move just for a handful of months. It wasn't even 6 months, I don't think, but in a kid's mind, we lived there for at least a year.
Right.
But we had to move to North Tulsa, and we were living with family. My mom and dad were living with my Aunt Shirley and Uncle Perry in their basement. They had 2 basement apartments, and they allowed us to move there until Dad and Mom could get on their feet. And of course, Dad and Mom paid them rent, but in the meantime, we were in a foreign country as far as me and my little brother were concerned, because we had lived in a very small town community, and the kids there were just very atrocious, very, very abusive, and very much bullies. And I was terrified living in the area that we lived in. The school that I went to, every single day, there were bullies and things. And my dad, I never told my parents, because I knew that they were, even as a little kid, even though I didn't know exactly what was going on in our lives, I think for whatever reason, little children just don't want to tell their parents they're being bullied at school. And so, but anyway, my dad, he said, he didn't know what it was going to take, but he was not going to raise his children in that environment.
Yeah.
And he would do whatever it took. And and he was right, man. We only stayed there just long enough for him to be able to draw us back up on our feet, and we were gone.
Right.
And so, because we originally, from what I understand, were trying to find a home there in Tulsa, But after we were subjected to that environment, Dad was like, there ain't no way I'm raising my family in this area. And so that's whenever we were introduced to Collinsville. But I'm so grateful that my dad had a vision. He was not going to allow his children to be raised in an area like that. And that's why I say, unless if we reshape our minds, often we can get trapped in a way of thinking, and we can live out that life, even though that's not the life God had intended for us.
Life is going to take you through journeys, and it's going to take you down paths. And if you're not careful, you'll lose sight of that path, and you'll get lost in whatever the quagmire is of that detour. When you're there for a season to learn, but you're not there to live.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's what I heard. That's what I heard you saying.
I think that's where I was trying to go with.
I thought okay. I thought you sounded pretty wise.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm so sorry about my loud laugh.
You're fine. I love your laugh. Now, the society we live in really is about pushing and driving and getting to where it's going to go, right? You want more. You have a nice car, well, you want a bigger, better car. You have a nice house, you want a bigger, better house. You have one boat, you need 3 boats, right? That kind of approach. And you can see it. And I'm not bashing anybody by any means by what you have, because we have a rental unit we keep our stuff in. But you see it by the rise in the number of rental units that are out there, and people just buying more and putting more in. But somehow we bought into the myth that the worth is our worth is in the destination, when really the worth is in the trip. Now, Psalms 119, 105 says, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. Right?
Right.
And then Proverbs 16:9 says, in their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of times we step out to do something, and we think that we're doing it because this is what we're going to do, when the reality is that is, if we will listen and follow the peace within our hearts, that is guiding us down the path we need to go on so we can learn the lessons, right? So you think about it. The children of Israel, they wandered in the desert for 40 years, right?
Yes.
And you think, well, why did they need to go through that 40 years and all that? But the truth is, had they not learned to, had they not hardened, had they not worked on their resolve during that 40 years, when they finally stepped across into the promised land, crossed the Jordan and went in and started encountering the giants, they wouldn't have the strength to fight the giants.
Right.
They wouldn't have the resolve. They wouldn't have time to build up that vision within their head that that's our land over there. Right. And so they would have ran in the very first conflict, because they didn't have that stamina built up. Mm-hmm. So our journeys really teach us those things we need to learn. They give us that strength, give us those insights. Those lessons we learn, we don't understand why we're learning them, suddenly come back into play, later down the road. So there's a song that from the barn to the battle. Right. And I love from the barn to the battle. So one of the verses in it says, or one of the chorus says, from the barn to the battle, from fear to the fight, from trembling hands to a torch in the night. He calls the weak and makes them bold. He shatters limits we still hold. You don't need a crown, just faith to stand. God writes his story with unlikely hands. So rise, O soul, and lift your eyes. He turns your whisper to a battle cry. And what I love, the bridge on it says, and the Spirit said, it's not what you lack. Just take the step. I've got your back.
Right.
And I think that a lot of times in our lives, we miss that. Right. I've told people, as I'm coaching, I tell people all the time, it is much easier to change the direction of a car that's moving than it is one that's parked, right? Mm-hmm. And our lives are that way. We can sit and not do anything and want to change, but nothing's going to change.
Right.
But once we're moving, even if it's the wrong direction, you can make course correction. But once you're moving, you can make that direction, that change, and you can start going in the direction that you want. But you're going to learn something in the process.
Right.
So if you think about just our life together, right? What's 1 mile on our journey together? that we almost overlooked? What was that 1 mile that we were so busy or so caught up in everything that we almost missed the magic of it? And I can think of mine, right back.
Well, share yours, because there's been a lot of different things. I think every couple, every individual, whether married or not, all, if they sit down and think about things, they can think of a lot of areas where they wish that they would have turned on course early in life, and sometimes they wish they would have turned off course later. They felt that they were on course for too long, and when they knew their lives were being steered a different direction. So I can't think of anything right offhand, but
so I go back to and we talked about on one of the other podcasts, or that video we worked on yesterday. Yeah, talking about when I was pastoring a church, mayor of the community, running the baseball team on a couple different boards, working a full-time job.
Right.
And the whole time almost missed my most important full-time job, which was being husband and father. Mm-hmm. Right. And then how God had to get our attention and bring it back. Now, that didn't stop me from being any less of a workaholic. Right. Because I was so pursuing my identity at the time, trying to figure out who I was and establish who I was. Mm-hmm. But it made me more conscious of that being intentional with time with the family, mm-hmm. and that sort of thing. Now, looking back, would I have taken the kids camping more? Probably. Would I have probably gone the motorcycle route with them? Absolutely. Right. Things like that, more tactile type things. But had it not been for that that shift, I would have almost missed that entire time. And as it was still took a lot of work on your part and definitely on God's part to get my attention, to keep me focused, on the important things. Right.
I think I touched on all that myself in our last episode. I think one of the times that probably I'm grateful that we were steered a different direction was when we were youth pastors of a church that had 500 people per service, and had multiple services. And I feel like we were kind of, even though I have no doubt that God had placed us there for a season, I feel it could have been extremely easy to have stayed there longer than we intended, but gratefully, through circumstances unfolding the way they did, we could have chosen to continue to stay there.
Right.
But I'm grateful that instead we felt that it was our time to go.
Yeah.
And if we had gotten extremely involved in the manner in which we were steering, I feel that our lives more than likely would have not taken this incredibly sensational turn here and there through life, because we would have been stuck.
Hmm?
We were both helping in every area of ministry, the children's ministry, the missions, the youth, everything. I mean, we were door greeters, and not that I'm saying that I'm not putting anyone down whatsoever who works in the church and works very diligently. I'm not saying anything towards you and your ministry. No. I'm not trying to steer your ministry. What I'm saying is for us. Before that, we had both grown up in smaller country-style churches with smaller ministries, and I feel like the trajectory our lives were taking at that moment was steering us away from smaller churches. And our hearts have always been with the smaller churches and the smaller communities, but by steering, by God changing that situation in our lives, we felt the need and the draw to go back to the smaller churches.
Right.
And God used what we learned in a large church community, how to go about reaching in a different avenue, how to reach the young people, how to reach in ministry and song and different things that I don't think that we necessarily would have ever taken. We took great value in the lessons that we learned and we applied them.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to get around to. And I feel like oftentimes you feel like you're taking a step back, like you had said when we were at the mission there at the Indian mission, when we felt like we were taking a step back because you had worked a higher place, but yet God used that tremendously to shape and steer our path. And the thing is, were we willing to walk it? And gratefully, yes, we chose to walk.
Yeah, that one's fair. One fair. So I know you coach a lot of people, right? Informal through life,
Yeah,
right?
Yes.
But how would you suggest that people, or what would you suggest people can do that could help them reframe their daily routines to make them more meaningful, right? So it'd be meaningful miles and not just wasted time, not just stuff I have to do, the grind, right?
Meaningful miles. Well, I think, my sister, she's not my sister, but I think of her as my sister, Stella.
To your sister.
She's my sister too. We are sisters at heart. And so we have talked about this countless times. Comes up all the time whenever I feel that one of us feels the other one may possibly be steering. We start seeing chaos in the other person's life. We're reminded the importance of starting every day off with God.
Right.
Not to get busy, that as soon as we wake up, the first thing we do is start letting our minds wander, grab our phones, start flipping through our phones and everything. But to first of all, dedicate this day, this moment where we're at in life to God. And, and I do try to encourage other young women, even our children and things, that if we want our lives to steer correctly, steer on course, the best way is to have that personal, intimate relationship with God, not just a duty list, right? Oh, well, I got to come to the Father and start my day off. And so I'm starting it off right. No, it's more than that. It is just coming to your Father as you would to a parent. Hopefully those out there who are listening have a good relationship with their parent, or if they don't have a relationship with their parent, whoever that's important in their lives, that they, they value that relationship, that back and forth.
Yeah.
That, you don't want, I don't want a father that I go to that I just talk to, and that's all I do is talk, just to hear myself talk. I want to have a relationship with the Heavenly Father that I can get quiet enough, long enough to hear His heart speaking to mine.
Right.
And so to me, just moving in a productive daily life, it all starts out truthfully by taking time and devoting part of yourself, part of who you're going to be that day, to Him. And then take time once you've shared your heart just to get quiet, to listen. And, if I could have been young, if I could speak to a younger self, that's what I would say to her. Is my whole life, I just was so dang busy. I didn't understand. And as I got older, I knew the importance of slowing down, taking time, dedicate your day from the very beginning to God, because, sister and I have always discussed, we know full well that when we do these things, when we look to God and we say, okay, God, here's my day, I dedicate it to you. And not just say it, but do it in word and in deed by actually having conversation with him. Maybe perhaps if you're a journal writer, writing your notes directly to him, doing your devotional or whatever. Both of us know, and our mid self knows, the person that, here we are as a young person, we're so busy. As we start getting older, that middle part of us starts saying, slow down, dedicate your life, dedicate your day to God, and it's going to be easier. And, but yet life picks up and you get busy again. So I don't know if that's what you're asking.
No, there's 100%. So for me, it's about intentionality, right? Knowing,
Exactly.
right? Being very intentional about what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Right.
Don't just get caught up in the rat race cycle of, well, this is what everybody's doing, so I've got to do this, right? And make sure that what you're doing is feeding you, right? Because
Right.
if it does, then that can be, one's going to give you energy and it's going to bring you life, and it's going to be that connection to the calling that God has on you. But breathe.
Right.
Breathe. Be very intentional about your downtime as much as you are about your active time. And we talked about, I think maybe in the last episode, we talked about your devotional. The devotional is it's a moment, it's a focused moment between you and God, right? With the Word and with the Spirit. And then if you get in a mode where you get 4 or 5 days behind, where you don't do it for 5 days, and you're like, oh, I gotta get caught up. Well, that's missed the intent of the whole thing. That's
Exactly.
not your intent is to complete the task, not necessarily get the moment right.
But when you're a list maker, it is extreme. If you are a person that's how you're driven,
oh, for sure,
that excites you, it can become an illness if you're not careful.
Right.
But I myself, although I may get distracted, because I don't want to go back to blank pages. That's my purpose for going back. And I don't do it necessarily always to just check it off my list, but I do it trying to take that time that I got so busy this week and did miss 3 or 4 days.
Right.
I want to reflect what did happen on Monday.
Right.
What did I do? And I understand what you're saying. I completely get it. But for, all list makers, some of us are just so driven that we have to have that checked off our list. But for me, yes, there are times that is the situation, but that's not my heart's situation. My heart is when I go back through this journal a year from now or 2 years from now, I will know. I'll keep it real with myself. I'll understand that there were times that I got too busy and too sidetracked, but I also want to recall what did happen on that Monday that was significant, that was special, that something that I learned from. And that's what I usually write in my journal is I don't bash people. I don't put people down. That's never been any intention, my heart's intention when I write out the words in my journal.
Right.
My words are either things that I want to say to myself that hopefully will lift me up when I look at them from a year from now or 6 months from now, or it's words that God imparted into my heart, or reflections that I've taken from something that I learned from that day. Everyone journals differently. You have to journal what speaks to you. But I understand where you're going with this.
I'm a very disciplined journaler myself. Every 3 or 4 years, I pick my journal up and I'll write an entry in it.
Right.
And surprisingly, it's always around the same time. So I don't know if it's a seasonal thing.
It is a seasonal thing. So, God taught me about that. But yes.
So, and I didn't realize I was doing it until I pulled my journal out and I thought, hey, I haven't written it here. And, it was
a year and 2 days ago.
Yesterday, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, let me write it. Well, then next time I pick it up, it's like, oh, wait a minute, it's been 2 years since I wrote this. What happened in 2 years? And I'll do that in my journal and say, wow, this has been a busy 2 years. This is the things that we've learned. Right. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure at some point we'll move on to the next phase of existence, and the boys will inherit our stuff, and they'll they'll probably find my journal if they read them. And they would look and they would say, huh, yeah, Dad was kind of spastic here. But,
Dad writes in his journal about as much as I write in mine.
Now, the truth is, they're going to look at it. They're going to say, I can't read a thing he's saying. What's he? But you're right, though. It is about gleaning out of that day what you can get out of that day, right? What did you learn? Where are you going, right? What do you need to learn, right? Because what helps you is it your journaling that helps you stay in the present, right? What keeps you from losing yourself? And it's a challenge, right? There's days we feel lost. But what keeps you from losing yourself and just the frustration and turmoil of life?
The thing is, you have to intentionally set your mind to things higher, right?
Right.
And whenever we don't, then we can get stuck. And so I am unstuck thanks to
awesome. Yeah.
Thanks to our Heavenly Father. Just and the thing is, he's always there, just trying to I don't want to say push us, but he's there reminding us daily that we don't have to be stuck. Yeah. But we can get stuck in our heads if we're not careful. And
for sure.
And so, but my whole thing with the journaling is it does definitely helps me to stay on track whenever I'm focusing and steering towards my health journey. It really it inspires me daily to and in the beginning when I first start something like that, it's a little hard, but then as the more I focus on it, it's something that I look forward to every day, and it really motivates me to move forward in every day. And I could flip back earlier in the week and I can say, okay, this is where you had a little bit of a stumbling, but look here, that was Monday, but look at Tuesday, it was so much better. And why was it better? Because I happen to address Monday. Right. And because I addressed Monday, it helped me to be able to steer on course my goals, my desires, what I want to keep track of. And
because success and happiness isn't a big event, right?
No.
It's a series of small things that we do consistently every day.
It is.
Because the seeds we plant today are clearly tomorrow's harvest, right?
It is.
Or the next season's harvest. And a farmer doesn't expect to throw seed in the morning and go out in the afternoon and pull up crop.
No.
And we shouldn't expect the same things in our own life.
Sad part is, unfortunately, the majority of the time, especially if we're walking in a new season, right? Which kind of is where we find ourselves right now. This is a complete different season than any other season we've ever lived in our entire lives. And,
terrifying and frustrating and challenging.
Yeah, it's extremely
awesome and all that at the same time.
It is. It has been a whirlwind of emotion. But the thing is, you just have to stay on track, and you have to know that wherever God is steering you, that did anything happen bad that day? No, it didn't. But yet you got a little closer to the step of your big goal that that you've been called to do.
Yeah.
And so you just have to stay on track. You have to not let your head overwrite your heart and your heart overwrite your head. Yeah. You just have to stay focused and in the game. And
that's what balance.
Exactly. That's what you were saying about the farmer with the expectations of throwing out the seed and expecting to harvest the next day, because our zealousness overzealousness can get in the way from the excitedness of what this new thing is. We can, if we're not careful, expect to throw that seed out and expect that it is, going to be here tomorrow. Yeah. And that may not be God's plan. Maybe it is tomorrow. Yeah. But it's just to settle in. It's just more important that we just settle in the journey and just know up front, just go ahead and prepare ourselves mentally, which I'm not sure I did this time.
Right.
Usually I'm really great about saying, okay, all right, God's taking us down a new path, and I'm going to
The time frame on this one is working out weird for me, right?
Yeah.
Because some things that I was expecting immediately or very early definitely did not gel. There's hints of them and seeds of them, so you kind of see them coming.
Right.
But it's been harder to stay focused and stay the course, right? Because some of the immediate not reaction, that's the wrong word. The immediate fruit isn't being seen. So it's easier to slip into the discouragement or in the disenchantment and start thinking, okay, kind of like children of Israel, right? Every time they encountered something hard, they said, well, we should have stayed in Egypt, right? We should have stayed in bondage back there. At least we were fed.
Right.
It's kind of that way, right? Things happen in your life. Well, you know what? I should just stayed in that job. It sucked.
Right.
But I should have just stayed there. But the truth is that's not the season we're in. That's not the path we're going. And we can't expect to step into new realm, a new kingdom role without shedding the skin of the old role.
Right.
Kind of like a locust, or butterfly. That's not a comfortable process to be transformed or to shed the skin.
Right.
But yet they do it.
Right. Well, kind of what you were talking about, just to share just shortly, there was a point in my life where I had taken photography in high school, moved away from that, and didn't think I was ever going to revisit that. Well, then I started picking up photography as a hobby. And as I picked it up, people started asking me if I would do sessions for them on the side. And as my hobby started growing, I started realizing I actually had this really great knack for being able to capture people's emotions on film. And so I remember one night after we had gone to dinner with James and Stella, you, out of the blue, out of nowhere, asked me, hey, if there was anything you could do, if money were not an object, is there anything in the world that you would do without even thinking about it? What would you do?
I sent you the picture of my remote island yesterday that I would do.
Oh, well, I had no hesitation on our way home and immediately didn't even hesitate whatsoever, and it just flew out of my mouth. I would stop everything I'm doing. I would quit my job and I would be a full-time photographer. And of course, you were so amazing, and you said, so what's stopping you? And it absolutely shocked me that you said that. And you said, we're doing all right financially. Let's follow your dream. And I just was floored, absolutely floored. And I was like, well, I can't do that. And you said, sure you can. You can go into work tomorrow and you can give your 2-week notice and you can start your dream. And so that really threw me for a loop. And so I just, I went home that night, and the expectation that rose up in my heart, but yet also the fear. And you were, just coming behind me, encouraging me the whole way, and told me to get out of my head and to follow my heart. And so the next day I went into work and I said, hey, I have decided to, and at that time we also were still with the mission. And so I was being spread a little thin between work and the mission and my photography. And so I just went in, explained, and said, I think I really want to focus on our mission right now. And I want to make my photography a full-time job. And Michael has told me he wants to support me in this. And so I remember, even though my boss was really sad that I was leaving, because, we all got along so incredibly well at my work. She just was like, follow your dreams, follow your heart. And what kind of person is that God would put someone in your life? Because so incredibly, not one person, but two, immediately telling me to follow after my dreams. So, I had 16 photo sessions that I had in the books. And Michael told me, let's follow your dream. And went home that day, just convinced that everything was all right. And I was doing my sessions and everything. The day I quit my job, the day I walked away from my job, that's when everybody out of nowhere just started canceling sessions, canceling them right and left, down to me having 16. Well, I think I had already followed through with, I had already had like 10 or 15 sessions that had already done and was in the middle of edits or had already completed edits and completed those 2 additional sessions in between. But 16 sessions had dropped down to, I think, only 1 or 2 sessions. And I was like, oh my God, talk about questioning my judgment, questioning, oh my God, what did I do to myself? And questioning my abilities and my gifts and my calling, and everything was just bombarding and hitting me so hard. And you said, do not give up on your dream. Whatever you do, we are going to walk this out.
Stay the course.
And stay the course. And I remember feeling so dejected and feeling so misguided in my own thoughts, my own aspirations of what I thought maybe the possibilities of stepping out and doing this, really doing this. I can't believe I'm doing this. And then everything comes crashing down. And then I just decided to listen to what you were telling me. And I knew in my heart I was supposed to do it. And so I pulled up my bootstraps and I was like, okay, God, just one session at a time, just one session at a time. It actually worked out so incredibly good because we were still at the mission at that time. And little did I know at that point that our time at the mission was tapering down. And you were getting ready to step into your new role. And so God's timing is so beautifully perfect. And once again, we can get wrapped up if we want to and seeing all the negative, or we can start seeing the positive. Right. And now I wasn't just overwhelmed with work and with the photography on the side and with the mission. Now I didn't have the work. I didn't have the gobs of sessions because, my photography session could last up to 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours. If it was a wedding, it could last all day. And the thing is, it gave me, and then to go from that and then go straight home either that afternoon, that evening, that morning, whatever, and sometimes edit for up to 16 hours a day. I was editing nonstop. That's besides the sessions. God just taught me to slow down.
Yeah, because too much of a good thing is a bad thing, right?
Right.
The right thing at the wrong time is the wrong thing, right? So
no, you're right.
So I think that's important, and it's good to remind ourselves of that from time to time. Mm-hmm. Every Thanksgiving, we all have a month of gratitude, right? Every day everybody will go through the routine of what am I thankful for today. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that you started early on our trips, as we're traveling down the road or whatever, is you were, almost childlike in your faith and in your excitement of the adventure of what's down this road type thing,
right?
But we really practiced those gratitude moments as we were driving, right? We were thankful for that opportunity. We were thankful for this. And we talked about those things as we went. Far more than most husbands are comfortable talking about. I'll give you that.
Oh my gosh. You're my very best friend. There isn't anything on the planet that I can't talk to you about.
But I'm just saying that, I'm not saying with you, right?
Right.
But I'm just saying that, those, to the husbands, you've got to open yourself to those conversations because you don't know what you're gonna learn or what you're gonna hear, and it's easy for us to block out the voice in the passenger seat when the reality is we're supposed to be intentional about being there at that moment, right? We can't be driving down the road having this conversation with you while I'm still working, right? Those kinds of things take the value of the journey away, right? So I think if I was going to suggest to anybody is, first of all, practice gratitude on the go. Practice those when you're out and about. I love sitting in my office here. I focus by unfocusing, right?
Right.
I have an offline processor. So for me, a lot of times you say, why are you sitting there staring? Like, oh, I'm not staring at you. I'm actually staring way behind you.
Right.
I'm just unlock my eyes. I'm just letting myself go into standby mode while I'm processing whatever. And I'll do the same thing. I'll sit in the backyard, just sit on the chair and do it. But as a result, right, of taking time to look around, I get to spend a lot of time watching the hummingbirds out front, right?
Yes.
Watching their change and watching their patterns. I've got the what is that anti-zero gravity chair in the backyard, right? So I'll sit out on the deck sometimes, just kind of just sit there and just enjoy the silence of nature. And as a result, this year, for the first time, right, I'm almost 60 years old, we have a pair of migrating Mississippi kites.
Right.
That are, that I've got to watch and experience. I didn't even know they were a thing until I saw the one on the tree. And I'm like,
yes.
What is that? And my thrill in life is the research behind something. So I see it, and then I want to start tracking down what it is, and I'm writing it. And they're just majestic birds, right?
That's exactly what I was just about to say. Very, very majestic.
Yeah, they are. They're amazing. In fact, when I saw the first one sitting on the top of this little Charlie Brown tree next to our house, I thought that the way it was shaped, I thought it was eagle sitting there, the way the sunlight was hitting it.
Right.
Because they had a lot of the same features and same characteristics and held its body the same way. And it is a raptor, right? So it's part of the same family. But then watching it go, and it's got like a 4-foot plus wingspan. It's just a massive bird.
Wow.
And it's just gorgeous to watch it. But had I not taken time, make it part of my routine to go out and do that, I never would have seen it. So now I know where each place all the time of day where it's probably going to be in the area.
Right.
And I can just kind of watch it and still enjoy that. But it's taking those moments of gratitude on the go, right?
It is.
And the next thing really is about setting your micro goals. It's easy to set the big goals, and you survive or thrive based off of hitting that big goal. But it's the micro goals in between, right? In this week's Lead Well, Live Whole, that's what Larry Kerr was talking about. It's those 2 to 3 things you do every day, right? It's those small things you do that are guiding you toward the long goal. Because one, we can't control what's going to happen tomorrow. We can't control what's going to happen next year. We can't control what's going to happen 3 to 5 years from now. But there's things we can do now that can keep us going in that direction.
That's right.
Right. And then build in pauses. Right. We talked about, people hear me talk all the time, and you've talked about yourself, Tammy, about guardrails and margin. Build those in, right? Build in that afternoon nap, right? Or whatever it may be that gives you time to breathe, gives you time to reflect, or gives you time to pray, right? Build that into your routine. It can't be, I'm out of bed, right? Was it 9 to 5 song, right? I stumble out of bed and or roll out of bed and stumble to the kitchen and find myself a cup of ambition type thing.
Right.
It can't be that I hit the floor answering emails, and I've been there, right? Answering emails, answering phone calls, right, while I'm trying to get dressed, and then, rush through the day and then get home. It's like, I don't know. I know it's a busy day, but I have no idea what I did, right? That's a bad way to live your life.
Mm-hmm. I would like to also add, it's extremely important that you are intentional about the causes, but also it's extremely important that you recognize the pauses that God places in your life as well, because I didn't get a chance to finish, after God with the photography, once God had set that situation to where I didn't think I was going to have a business, and I was able to have that pause, He was able to work my business plan into such a more beautiful path than I could have ever imagined or dreamed.
Oh, for sure.
And my photography took off insane. I mean, where before sometimes I was just doing sessions as just a favor to friends, or just wanted to be able to gift sessions to people. This was actual paid extremely well paid sessions.
Right.
So it's extremely important that we do recognize the pause and don't just think it's a divot in our life.
Right. No, 100%. Right. It's about being intentional, being present where you are.
Right.
Which then brings up the next thing, right? Celebrate the progress.
Yes.
Celebrate. Hey, I made it through the day and only ate a half gallon of ice cream instead of the normal gallon I wanted. Right.
Right.
That sounds silly, but it's those things, right? There's a progress and there's a path, right? I only yelled at 3 people today. I only cut one person off in traffic. I only honked once.
I only watched TV for 2 hours.
Right,
Look at that. Usually I can watch TV for 4 hours. Yeah.
But it is about the progress. It's not just the finish line. Right. I want to be 30 pounds lighter.
Right.
Well, I don't celebrate when I'm 30 pounds lighter. I have to celebrate when I'm 1 pound lighter, when I'm 5 pounds lighter, when I'm 10 pounds lighter.
Celebrate in that day, whatever you
absolutely right. Yeah,
you're getting a new mindset, and that you are steering towards the body physique that you're wanting, and celebrate who you are now. And that's the thing that I learned, is that so oftentimes I forgot to celebrate me. Just celebrate the life that I'm in right now. And maybe it's not exactly where I want to be, but guess what? Today I made a decision that I'm taking steps today that's going to help me get there.
Right. No, I agree 100%. So those 4 things really are things that I would encourage people to do to make every mile matter, right?
Yes.
Practice gratitude on the go.
Right.
Celebrate the small things. Don't wait till a season to do it. Set your micro goals. Right. Instead of chasing all the big milestones. Build in pauses, put guardrails and margin in your routine and your activity in your life.
Right.
And then celebrate the progress.
Exactly.
Whatever it may be. Celebrate that progress.
Amen.
Right? And when you do, you'll find more meaning in the miles. You'll find more meaning in the journey and not just in achieving whatever it is you're going to achieve.
Absolutely.
So we have gone long in this episode. But I do want to take time just to ask you, what mile are you on right now that you might be overlooking, right? Stop and think. Ask yourself, where I am right now in this journey, what joy am I overlooking? What opportunity am I overlooking? What pause am I rushing through? And then share with us. If you're comfortable, share it with us, right? On our social media.
Yes, we would love that.
And because, next time we're going to talk about slowing down enough to see the wonder around us. Something along the lines of take time to smell the flowers.
That's right. So oftentimes we get so wrapped up in life's journey that we don't enjoy the little things. Yeah. A lot of times the most meaningful things that God places in our path along the way.
Because it is the little things that have the most impact, more than we realize. So before we close, anything else you want to share, Tammy?
No, I think it was a very wonderful session today, episode. I enjoyed it very much.
I think so. All right, so just remember, every mile matters.
We go.